I'm Brian Scordato, and this is the Idea to Startup podcast brought to you by Tacklebox. We accelerate ideas into real companies through the Tacklebox membership, and we think through startup strategy every Wednesday on the Idea to Startup podcast. You're here because you're thinking about an idea, or you're ready to launch something, or you already launched something and you're running full steam ahead. We're here to help with the counterintuitive stuff. On to it. Today, we've got an episode for all of you who have lots of ideas and aren't sure which one to pursue. Or you might be facing a slightly nuanced flavor of that problem. You've been working on an idea for a little while, but a shiny new idea popped into your head recently and you think that maybe it is a better use of your time than the first one. But you also know that all babies are cute, and you've got to spend a little time with them before you realize that they can somehow projectile burp sour milk onto your favorite sweatshirt from 7 feet away while they're in a baby Bjorn. Not talking of any baby specifically, just a metaphor. Today, we'll help you figure out which idea is the best fit for you without you needing to spend a year working on it first. We'll shoot for a targeted 2-week sprint that'll get you clarity on the foundational blocks of an idea so that we can stack it up against others. Most importantly, ideas are like haircuts. Some are great for some people and terrible for others. Every idea has to be viewed through the lens of the founder's skills and tendencies and wants and needs and networks and worldview. No idea is objectively good or bad any more than the Rachel is objectively good or bad. The best way to show you how to do this is to show you how to do this. So that's what we'll do. Which brings us to today's victim, Erica. Erica really wants to be an entrepreneur. She told me that every day she isn't building a meaningful business feels like a, quote, wasted day. The problem is she has lots of ideas, a notebook full of them, and she wants to make sure she's choosing the right one before she invests a ton of time and money into it, because she believes that spending a year on the wrong idea is a complete disaster. She's very focused on this. Like when I asked if she wanted to change her name for the pod, she looked at me with the patience of a 7th grade math teacher after you said you forgot your homework and said, there are thousands of Ericas, and who cares if someone finds out it's me? Let's get back to the ideas. So know that her name really is Erica, and no, she doesn't care if you figure out which. Now, let's talk about the 2 types of entrepreneurs. In my experience, there are 2 types of entrepreneurs. The first is what I call the grudging entrepreneur. These people started businesses because it's the only way this pain-in-the-ass problem they need to solve is going to get solved. They'd be much happier if someone else had just solved the damn problem for them, but they literally can't wait for that anymore. They're dragged kicking and screaming into entrepreneurship. These people tend to do extremely well. Their instincts line up perfectly with the instincts an entrepreneur needs to be successful. They're razor focused on the exact problem they've got, and they hold a healthy skepticism about the entire process. This means they make sure people will buy the thing before they consider building it. They charge a lot because they aren't doing this for their health, and they keep the product small and focused because complexity makes their life more difficult, and they don't want that. It is about building the most useful thing in the least amount of time. There isn't an ounce of romanticism. They've usually already got a network and reputation in the space, so the first sale is straightforward and usually leads them to the next 10. They also probably don't have any other ideas, so they aren't pulled in a bunch of different directions. The second type of entrepreneur is what I call the gleeful entrepreneur. These people are startup romantics. They love the idea of starting and running a business, and they see the world through that lens. Everything is interesting, and the idea could be lurking under every stone, so they pick them all up. They care less about the idea and more about running something. These founders tend to struggle. Nearly every instinct they have is antithetical to what an entrepreneur needs to do to be successful. They're butterflies floating from flower to flower. They often spend time on things like building in public or LinkedIn thought pieces or VC meetups or startup podcasts, other than this one, of course, because they're searching for the thing that's going to click. This rarely works. To be successful, they'll need to create and enforce boundaries that'll protect themselves from themselves, and that is not easy to do. And maybe hardest, they'll have to pick an idea and stick with it. Gleeful entrepreneurs are interested in entrepreneurship. Grudging entrepreneurs are interested in solving a specific problem. Unfortunately, I'd bet that 85% of entrepreneurs I meet are gleeful entrepreneurs. Luckily, most of our systems at Tacklebox are built for them and they can absolutely be successful, but you need structure. Not sure what type you are? Here is the test. Think about your last vacation. Did you just enjoy it? Or did you think up like 7 different businesses while you were there? I bet you did the second. I bet you were at the Sandals and Turks and Caicos or something and you saw the guy on the beach renting stand-up paddleboards and you thought, hey, he should get a contract with the hotel. Or better yet, he should partner with Airbnbs and add the stand-up paddleboards to their checkout flow. Then he could hire some local teenagers to drop off and pick up these paddleboards, and then he could expand to bikes and scooters and snorkel equipment, and he could franchise that process and drop it in other resort towns, and eventually he'd have enough money that he could sit on the beach all day. Like the beach he currently sits on all day, selling his stand-up paddleboards. You wouldn't get the irony. I love people like you. I am a person like you. But we need extra structure, or else we'll just hop from flower to flower. And that is what today's episode is about. These tangents are going to piss off Erica, so we've got to get back to it. She's got ideas to test. Today, we'll walk through the ERP, or Early Rep Potential Rubric, a way for Erica and for you to contextualize, test, and evaluate all your ideas against each other fast so that you aren't that butterfly, so that you pick the right idea and are able to make space to pursue it properly. I liked this so much that we built a Notion template for it. Go to gettacklebox.com and sign up for No Whisper Ideas, our weekly newsletter. If you're already signed up to it, you'll already get the template. The idea you start with matters. The variance between two ideas for a founder with the same level of effort and quality and luck put into each will likely be as big as the variance between failing miserably and building a wildly successful business, whatever that means to you. Let's jump into the testing rubric so that you're that second case. And let's do it. Before the jazz, we'll talk through Erica's ideas, then we'll do some jazz, then we'll pick one of them and evaluate it. Erica's ideas. Erica joined Tacklebox less with an idea and more with a theme umbrella that had a bunch of potential ideas and paths beneath it. The theme is that she loves detecting things that are hard to detect, but make a huge impact on people once they are detected. She believes that most people have no idea what it feels like to feel good, because the process of finding out what's holding you back is a hard one. This comes from personal experience. Erica grew up in Vermont, got married there, and started a family there. Shortly after the wedding, she moved into a new house, and that's when things started getting, quote, fuzzy. She'd get disoriented and dizzy easily, and she started having stomach issues. Countless doctors found nothing. Eventually, an HVAC person noticed telltale black mold signs in her basement. Lots of houses in Vermont have water damage and mold, he said. It can do a real number on you. After a few sky-high quotes for getting rid of that mold, Erica's family had an opportunity to move to Michigan, and they took it. A few days after moving, Erica and her husband felt totally different. She said they were mentally clearer than they'd ever been. It was like, quote, being lifted out of a fog. But it was just mold. This started Erica's obsession with not knowing what it felt like to feel good. If the mold had been holding her back, what else had? She started testing diet, sleep, and exercise, looking for low-hanging fruit. The differences were unbelievable, she said. Once I cut out certain foods, my sleep became way better, which made me feel better and helped me exercise more. It was a massive pain in the ass doing all the food tests and required a ton of discipline. But once I had a list of things that my body couldn't digest, my life changed again. And I also lost a bunch of weight because I stopped eating things my gut didn't know how to digest. She naturally told her friends who were curious. How could they do it too? So Erica built a doc that walked through the process. First, test in your home: mold, radon, lead, water, air quality, with paths to fix each. Then, tests in your body: elimination diets to find sensitivities, then schedules and ways to track and test sleep and exercise. It all fed into a master doc that combined objective and subjective metrics. Numbers for how you felt on a scale of 1 to 10 alongside step counts and sleep data from an Apple Watch. She gave this document, her masterpiece, to excited friends, and they ignored it. She put it up for sale online and ran some ads, and 2 people bought it. Checking in with them a few months later, neither ever got past day one of her protocol. This was probably obvious to you as a listener. It's easy to see when you're not in it. But this is as common a mistake as founders make. They have a complex problem and want to solve every part of it for every potential customer because they're gleeful entrepreneurs. And they can't leave anything out because they never know which thing is going to hit. Unfortunately, when you approach a business like this, none ever do because customers sense your unfocusedness and it scares them away. So, Erica joined Tacklebox to focus. I thought this was one idea, she said, but it's probably like 20. I need to whittle it down into something simple, not give people a 24-month comprehensive protocol. So I think I want to start with the two that seemed like they resonated the most: mold and seeing if you're allergic to some or all FODMAPs, which are things like garlic, onions, wheat, rye, and so on. Indeed. So that is where we'll start. Erica's big idea is compelling. I'm sure you perked up when you heard the phrase, most people have no idea what it feels like to feel good. Maybe you are operating at 50% of your capacity, and maybe mold is the reason. Or onions, I guess. The through line of loss aversion is powerful. Humans overvalue stuff we had but lost 2 times more than things we could potentially get. You are twice as upset at losing a $20 bill as you are happy when you find one on the sidewalk. Maybe your potential is being stolen from you by the garlic powder you put on your eggs every morning or the blackberries in your smoothie. Note, loss aversion as a strategy always works well. Positioning yourself to help people recover, say, lost revenue, will always be more compelling than helping people get new revenue, particularly when you're just starting out. Okay, let's help Erica contextualize the two whittled down ideas. First, mold. If you have mold, you need to deal with it because it's probably making you sick. But testing for it is expensive and tricky, as is getting rid of it. Second, food sensitivities. You eat 3 or 4 or 5 times a day, shout out Taco Bell, but you've probably never done a food sensitivity test, so you have no idea what's impacting your gut. But again, testing is hard and confusing, as are the lifestyle changes required. Let's break each down and see how well they fit with Erica's strengths by running them through the ERP, or Early Rep Potential Rubric, the best way to see which idea you should focus on when you start. It helps you compare ideas apples to apples based on a unique, overlooked, and, in our view, supremely important metric: reps. Assuming you aren't allergic to apples, of course. So let's do it. After a little smooth jazz. Hey, we finally got a free trial at Tacklebox. So if you've got a startup idea and a full-time job, head to gettacklebox.com and get started. We'll create some structure for you and get you going on interviews before you have to pay a dime. Think of it as instant momentum. Back to it. Why some ideas succeed and others fail. We'll start with the rubric you'll use to evaluate ideas, and then we'll push Erica's ideas through it. There are a bunch of ways to overcomplicate this, but a rubric only works if it's simple and applicable to most ideas. So I thought back to our most successful Tacklebox startups and the ones that I thought should have been successful but weren't. And one thing jumped out: reps. For whatever reason, and there have been a lot of reasons, successful founders were able to generate a whole bunch of reps with their customers early and fast. Either they had existing relationships, or tons of customers in the top of the funnel, or customers desperately needed a solution and sought them out, or any number of other reasons. Successful founders got reps early. There weren't any exceptions. Companies only start getting interesting after like 6 to 10 reps minimum, meaning 6 full interactions with your customer, from finding them to helping them solve their problem to seeing if they tell their friends to trying to sell to them again. You're going to be absolutely terrible at entrepreneurship when you start. This isn't your fault. You've never done it before. I'm sure you were terrible at juggling the first time you tried that too. Reps are how you get good. So we need those reps to be cheap and available. If, for example, you're building a travel startup that'll make it way easier for families with kids under 5 to fly, and those families only do that once or twice a year, it's going to take you forever to get reps unless you have an incredible pipeline of families about to travel. But if you're helping families with kids in elementary school coordinate rides to after-school programs, it's going to be much easier for you to get reps because you might have 3 or 4 opportunities per family per week to solve their problem. Frequency is often the most undervalued of the pain criteria for our first customers. If I had to bet on one of those two companies being successful without knowing a thing about the founders, it's easily the second idea because the rep potential is higher. It's always been interesting to me that people don't think of ideas solely in terms of early rep potential. I guess you might miss a few huge opportunities that have long lead times and infrequent but very high value customers, but startups are a bet, they're a wager. And the best odds are on the ideas that let you get a bunch of reps in early. And when you think of ideas solely through the lens of potential reps, the building blocks of them become clear. To complete a rep, you need to first find a customer, then get them to buy something from you, then solve their problem some way, then collect a ton of feedback from that, and then see if you're able to create any organic growth off the back of that customer. The ERP rubric is going to help you see which idea has the most potential for those reps. This will include the idea itself, the customers and the frequency of their problem and their willingness to try something new and all that, as well as your unique advantages for each of these blocks. If you visualize ideas as a 10-mile sprint, we want you to start on mile 8. We want unfair advantages. We want existing networks. We want ideas you've been subconsciously preparing to start for a decade. The rubric will surface these. And now, let's get into it. The ERP rubric. We've tried to simplify the ERP by digging in on the 5 components that make up a complete rep with a few founder-specific questions assigned to each. We have a point system on the Notion doc, but just asking the questions will make some ideas clearly promising or not. We'll start with the very top of the funnel, finding customers. We're trying to understand if we show up to this idea with a substantial head start for finding customers or not. To do this exercise, we obviously need to pick a customer, so that is part 1. Who? Who is your customer? To simplify this, pick a customer you've spoken with who is the best example of your current perfect customer and describe them using this sentence. Customer name really wants to goal, but every time they try, they get stuck with problem because of hyper-specific obstacle. Translated into a normal English sentence, that could be something like, Sarah really wants to test her home for mold, but every time she tries, she gets stuck with unreliable results because of confusing testing kits and expensive professional services that don't work well because she thinks the mold is actually behind her wall and not visible. Once you nail down customer, you can jump into the rest of the exercise. Next up is customer segmentation. What unique characteristics does this customer have that makes them disproportionately impacted by the problem? And, most importantly, do those characteristics help us find them? Next up, unfair advantage. Why is it easier for you to find this specific customer than anyone else? Next, after pain. Customers are much easier to convert if we can get them right after the moment they feel this pain. So, is it obvious when they've just felt the pain, and can we find them in that moment? And the last part of finding customers is what we call the weekend test. If you needed to find 15 customers for B2C and 3 customers for B2B this weekend, could you do it? Score each of these 4, customer segmentation, unfair advantage, after pain, and the weekend test, between 0 and 5 points and add them all up. That is your finding customers score. Next, we've got to convert these customers that we just found, and that is part 2. The first sub-question on converting customers is frequency. How many times a day, week or month, or hopefully not year, does this problem come up? This is the number of chances you're going to have to try and solve it, and I really hope it's daily or weekly. Next up is customer investment. What else has your customer done to try and solve this problem? If the answer is nothing, it's unlikely you're going to be the first thing that they try, so that would be a 0. If it's lots of things, then those things can be used as top of funnel marketing and a way to find and segment your customers. That would be a 5. Next up is the hassle premium. Do customers already pay or try to pay someone to take this entire problem off their plate because it is such a pain in the butt, like hiring someone to handle all of your taxes? And finally, the wedge. Is there a smaller, focused problem associated with the bigger problem that you can solve for this customer to get your foot in the door? Again, 5 points for each of these 4 sections. Part 3, Once we've found our customer, we've got to deliver value. So we're going to solve their problem. First sub-question, Concierge MVP. Can you solve this problem for your customers right now with a manual Concierge MVP? Meaning just you, some elbow grease, duct tape, and bubblegum. Next, design partners. Do you already have customers who would be willing to work alongside you as you help them solve the problem? Next, ethnographic research. Will it be easy for you to look over your customer's shoulder while they try and solve the problem? Finally, unfair advantages. Do you have any unfair advantages around solving this problem? Once again, scores are out of 5 points. Next up is collecting feedback off the back of that Concierge MVP. This one only has 2 questions. First is visual success. Will it be blindingly, indisputably obvious to you and your customer if they are successful with your Concierge MVP? And finally, the length of the loop. How long until the success will be obvious? Hopefully, it's a short amount of time. 5 points for each. Part 5, the last part of the rep, is organic growth, and it has 3 sections. First, cohesiveness. Do your customers naturally speak with other customers about this problem? Meaning, is there a really high likelihood that you'll grow organically? Next up is portability of success. Is the success that you've created for your customer really easy for them to share and for others to visualize? And finally, case studies. Will you be able to create case studies out of your first customers and use this for marketing to new customers? Once again, 5 points each. Lastly, there are 3 general questions, and I give them 10 points each because they are important. First, what mile are you starting at? This is subjective, but if this idea were a 10-mile race, what mile are you starting on? For example, if you have no connections or insight, you might start on mile 1. If you've got a strong network and an eager design partner, you might start on mile 7. Whatever mile you start on is the number of points to give yourself. Next is the uncomfortable bonus. Is there anything you enjoy about this problem or this customer or this process that would likely scare off most other entrepreneurs? 0 to 10 points. And finally, how long do you think it would take for you to complete a rep? If it is under a week, you get 10 points. A week to a month, you get somewhere between 8 and 3, and longer than that, and you're pretty low. And that is the rubric. It'll show you what you know and what you need to find out, and it'll tell you how well positioned you are to pursue an idea. The ERP in action. Okay, now we've got to put this rubric to work for Erica's ideas. It is just a lot of questions without some example anchoring it, so it's kind of hard to visualize. But we're already over 20 minutes in, and we've thrown a bunch at you, and I don't want to rush the evaluating part. So in the next episode, we'll talk through mold and food sensitivities, and you'll see how unbelievably well the ERP works, not just for picking an idea, but for giving you a clear path on how to build it. For now, I've got to go clean up my sweatshirt, because even though I said it was a metaphor, the baby was actually real. It's my baby, and he spit up on my new hoodie from across the room. Part 2 is next week. See you then. This was the Idea to Start a Podcast, brought to you by Tacklebox. If you've got a startup idea and a full-time job, head to gettacklebox.com and check us out. Have a great week.